Hello, this is Craig Wesco recording for TCGplayer.com, and today we're going to play Boros Hatebears. So you've probably watched some of my videos. If you have watched my videos, you've probably seen me play different variations of Hatebears. There's green-white Hatebears is pretty established in the format. Black-white Eldrazi Taxes is like the black-white Hatebears. I tried to make blue-white Hatebears a thing when Spell Queller saw print. So you have like Queller and Reflector Mage and stuff like that. I think that one is kind of on the verge of playable, but it's hasn't quite cracked in the way the green-white and the black-white have. But today I'm going to make an attempt at Boros red-white Hatebears working in Modern. So the biggest thing that Boros Hatebears gained recently that was really keeping it from becoming a possibility in Modern is Inspiring Vantage. So you basically have a bad mana base without it because Battlefield Forge is kind of the next best option, and just running 4 Battlefield Forges just to get enough lands means you're going to be taking too much damage from your lands. You just like your lands don't do enough. And so now just Vantage gives us a way better mana base. And we also get Needle Spires. So now we have a creature land to go along with our damage-free fast land. Now, the two major draws to playing Boros Hatebears, in my opinion, one is that you get Lightning Bolt. So in a lot of my other Hatebear decks, I have Sunlance in the sideboard as a way to deal with all the small creatures in the format. Like Path to Exile is great, especially with Leonin Arbiter, but there's so many creatures that, against Merfolk, against Infect, against Affinity, against like all the aggressive decks, even Dark Confidant, you just having an answer like Lightning Bolt is so good. And the fact that it's instant and can go at the face makes it just way better than Sunlance against everything except Master of Waves. So we can main deck that. And the other card that really excites me is Simian Spirit Guide. Now, usually we only see this card in combo decks, but Hatebears is in a kind of weird spot where it is kind of combo-y. Where if we get a first turn Leonin Arbiter or a first turn Thalia on the play, then the opponent just like has a hand of fetch lands and a lightning bolt or something, and they're just like, all right, suddenly like I have no lands. You just like I cannot produce mana with my deck to get to this Arbiter. Or like you have a one lander with like Serum Visions and Lightning Bolt, and I go turn 1 Thalia, and you can't do anything. You just are at the mercy of your draw step to try to find a land just to deal with it. So first turn Thalia or Arbiter is enough to get me to play the Spirit Guide. And then we also get some nice sideboard options, which could be main deck options. Blood Moon is another one of those cards that'll just come with free wins, especially if we're already playing Spirit Guide. We can get like a first or second turn Blood Moon. For a lot of the decks in the format, that's game over. And the other cool thing that Leonin Arbiter does, you want to play with like Path to Exile and Ghost Quarter for the Leonin Arbiter, so that once you have the Arbiter out, there's basically no drawback to those cards. It just becomes Strip Mine and exile target creature for 1 mana, no drawback. So in order to play around Blood Moon, the opponent's going to want to fetch their basics. So a lot of decks in Modern play 1, 2, 3 basics, sometimes 4 basics, but usually like 1, 2, or 3. And if they're fetching those 2 or 3 basic lands they have to play around Blood Moon, then we could just start Ghost Quartering them and Path to Exiling them, and they have no more basics to search out. So even though it's kind of like, it doesn't seem like there's the synergy there between the Arbiter package and the Blood Moon, that there kind of is, in the sense that it's really hard to play around, because you have to play around them by doing opposite things with your basics. So that's kind of interesting. And another card that I really, really, really like right now in Modern is Wear Tear. So the strategy that Affinity decks are using to combat like Stony Silence plans is they bring in Garapar Ether Grid, so they can still tap all their artifacts to ping all my creatures and ping me. So a lot of times, even when I have a Stony out, I just die to the Ether Grid because I have no way to deal with it, and it just kills all my creatures and then slowly kills me. Whereas Wear Tear can kill the Ether Grid and their most important artifact. So it's just like a 2 mana Shatter, quite literally, the red side against Affinity. So you could just, let's say they don't have the Ether Grid and they just plating up their creature and attack. You could just destroy the cranial plating with the Wear side. But if they have the Ether Grid, you can kill the Ether Grid with the Tear side and incidentally kill whatever their best artifact is with the Wear side. So that's kind of the most versatile card, I think, against Affinity. It's even better than Culligan's Command in post-sideboard games because it can hit the Ether Grid instead of dealing 2 damage to a thing. So that's a card I'm really excited about to have in my sideboard. And the other card a couple other cards I'm playing main deck for red, Fulminator Mage, which is basically between Fulminator, Tectonic Edge, and Ghost Quarter and Arbiter. We have a really good matchup against like Tron decks and Valakut decks and any decks that really rely on developing their lands as their main game plan. And then we also just have these Blood Moons in the sideboard to improve that, and also to improve matchups where like 3-color decks and decks with a bunch of like creature lands like Nexuses, the Blood Moons can come in there. We also get access to Figure of Destiny, which is an old favorite of mine. It's just a pretty interesting card. It's not super powerful. It's not like, oh my god, Boros, it gets Figure of Destiny. But it is a card that you can vial into play off of 1 mana, and it can grow. So it's just like it'll get out of hand pretty quickly, and it doesn't take a whole lot of investment to get it going and to be good. So it's just kind of a card I'm trying out that's like, pretty good. Something else might end up being better. Like we don't have the third and fourth Restoration Angel. We don't have Flicker Wisp. We don't have a couple other cards that we could be running. And I'm also trying 1 Grim Lavamancer. So Lavamancer is in general good, but in our deck it's not as good as it is in some other decks because we don't have fetch lands, because Lunan Arbiter keeps us from being able to fetch, so we don't want like Arid Maces in this deck. So without fetches, it's harder to get cards into our graveyard. So I'm just running 1 for now. We do have like Ghost Quarters and Tech Edges and Bolts and Paths, and our creatures are going to die, so we will be able to activate Lavamancer a couple times throughout a game, and really that's all we need. We just need to kill their Noble Hierarch, kill their Snapcaster Mage and their Delver of Secrets or something like that. And then we also have some of the traditional Hatebears cards, like we have Blade Splicer and Restoration Angel. And we also have Ajani Vengeant, which is kind of interesting. It's a little bit of a number with Thalia, because if we have Thalia out, it takes 5 mana to cast Ajani. But if we don't have Thalia out, it's just 4 mana. And it does work with our land destruction game plan. So if our plan is to keep them low on lands with Arbiter and like Ghost Quarter, Tech Edge, Fulminator Mage, then Ajani could just keep another land tapped down. It's also a way to deal with a problematic creature. Say we use our Path to Exile on their first Tasigur and then they play another one. Well, we can't bolt that Tasigur unless we line it up with First Strikers with like Thalia and Blade Splicer. But we could just keep it tapped with the Ajani. And then it's also a way to just go in a burn plan. So one thing that the Boros version can do that none of the other versions can do is we can deal damage to the opponent without attacking them. So a lot of times the land destruction plan kind of falls flat on its face, and the opponent has access to lands and clogs up the board, and now suddenly it's like, well, how do I get damage through? Well, we don't necessarily need to get damage through because we have 4 bolts, a Lavamancer, and 3 Ajanis. That's 8 ways to basically burn the opponent out. And so we also have some flyers. We have like 2 Restoration Angels and then 2 Figure of Destinies, which can become flyers if we get enough mana. So we can fly, we can burn, we can turn the corner, we can be land destruction. We have, 9, 10, 11, 12 removal spells. So we can kill creatures if we need to kill creatures. It's just a pretty interactive deck that can switch modes and do a lot of cool things. And now out of the sideboard, we already talked about Wear Tear. Great against Affinity, but also comes in a variety of other scenarios anytime we need to kill an artifact or enchantment. And then Forge Tender primarily against the mono red burn deck, but also can come in anywhere where the opponent's going to cast Anger of the Gods, Lightning Bolt, anything like that. And it's also a way to preemptively protect some of our very important creatures, like some matchups. Arbiter and Thalia are super good, so we just go turn 1 Forge Tender, turn 2 Thalia, or even better, turn 1 Vial, turn 2 Thalia or Arbiter, and then Vial in the Forge Tender, like in response to the bolt. So that comes up a lot. We split up 2 Rest in Peace and 1 Grafdigger's Cage as our graveyard hate. I did play against a Dredge deck the other day with Thug instead of Grave Troll, because Grave Troll is now banned from Modern. And it really kind of didn't feel that much different than the old Dredge deck. It's just a little bit less powerful. So I still want hate for that matchup. And then we don't really have anything that utilizes the graveyard except 1 Lavamancer. So Rest in Peace is kind of the slightly better one. But then Grafdigger's Cage also has some other incidental uses, like against elves, like Collected Company and stuff like that. So I split 2-1 because a redundant Rest in Peace doesn't do anything. So Stony Silence is the other card. I went 2 Stonies instead of any number of Shatters because we do have Thalia. So casting Shatter, we could do it, but I went with Stony Silence and Wear Tear. Stony Silence is really good against Tron decks too. Valorous Stance is primarily a card I want against Bant Eldrazi, but it's also good against any sort of big creature like a Tasigur or Gurmag Angler or a Tarmogoyf, a Siege Rhino, a Grim Flayer that's pumped up. So anything, just 4 toughness, even Restoration Angel, Celestial Colonnade. There's a bunch of cards that it can kill. Master of Ethereum. And Linvala is just kind of a card that it doesn't need to be in the sideboard, but it's a powerful enough card that it gives us game against elves. I bring it in against Affinity so they can't activate the Ravagers and their Steel Overseers. Bring it in anytime where like I just want another threat, and maybe their primary game plan of killing our creatures is Lightning Bolt because we have 4 toughness, it flies, and then if it has some other incidental uses like turning off some creature with an activated ability, then it's just more power. And then the last card, of course, Blood Moon is just another card that sometimes it'll be a free win type card. We can cast it as early as turn 1 off of Double Spirit Guide, but usually that's not the case. We only have 2 planes in our deck, but we have like Path to Exiles and Ghost Quarters, so we will want to get one of our planes onto the battlefield before casting the Blood Moon. But besides that, this is basically the deck. It's I don't know how powerful it's going to be, but in the few test games I've done, it's been holding its own. So it's definitely a little bit different, and this is a good place to begin, and hopefully it'll be entertaining. I'm playing with some cards that you probably haven't seen played, at least not played together in Modern very much. So let's see how this goes.